Why did everyone stop talking when she walked through the gate? It was supposed to be a proud day, sunlight spilling across the white stone plaza, flags snapping in the coastal wind, families laughing in uniforms and dresses. The air smelled of sea salt and polished brass. A marine band tuned somewhere near the stage, playing the first notes of the anthem. It should have been perfect. But for Sergeant Maya Hale, silence met her first. Not celebration, not welcome. Silence. She stood at the edge of the Naval Academy's grand parade ground, posture straight, eyes forward, medals gleaming faintly on her worn dress blues. Years of service had left their mark on her. A scar above her brow, the stiffness in her left shoulder, the careful calm of someone who had seen too much and learned not to show it. She wasn't here for the applause. She wasn't even on the guest list. She was here because one of the young graduates, Lieutenant Jalen Porter, was like a son to her. His father, Marcus Porter, had died in her arms in Helmand Province. Maya had promised him, "I'll look after your boy." And now that boy was graduating top of his class, stepping into the same uniform his father wore. She had kept her promise. She had every right to stand on that ground. But as she reached the steps leading toward the guest section, two security guards stepped into her path. "Ma'am, this area's restricted," one said, folding his arms across his chest. His badge caught the sun. His tone didn't. Maya stopped. "I'm here for Lieutenant Porter's graduation," she said evenly. "He invited me." The second guard smirked. "Invitations are for guests and families. Veterans are supposed to stay behind the line." For a moment she thought she hadn't heard him right. She'd been called many things in her career, ma'am, sergeant, even hero once, but never veteran behind the line. "I'm his godmother," she said softly. "I served with his father." But they didn't care. The first guard gave a little shrug. "Orders are orders." Maya looked past them. She could see the seats filled with proud parents, the cadets in perfect rows, Jalen on the far side of the field, his cap tilted just so, nervous, excited, unaware. She smiled faintly, then let it fade. Her hand tightened on the small box she carried, an old service coin, his father's, polished so clean she could see her reflection. The wind shifted. A hush spread as people noticed what was happening. A Marine turned away at the gate. Her pulse drummed, but her face didn't change. She'd been taught that dignity wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "I understand," she murmured finally. "I'll wait outside." She turned, her boots steady on the pavement, the sound of her heels echoing louder than applause ever could. And that's when it happened. "Wait, Sergeant Hale." The voice cut through the air like a shot. Everyone turned. From the front row of the stage, 6 men in dress white stood up at once. Navy SEALs, medals glinting, faces carved from the kind of silence only war could teach. They didn't hesitate. They didn't look around for permission. They simply began to walk, boots striking in perfect rhythm. The crowd murmured, the guards froze, and Maya froze too. She recognized them before they even reached her. Commander Ethan Ross, Lieutenant Kyle Nunes, Petty Officer Hartman, men she'd patched up in the desert, men who'd once carried her to the medevac after the blast that nearly took her leg. They were supposed to be overseas. Not here, not today. The guards looked nervous now. "Sir Commander, we were just—" Ethan stopped in front of them, eyes sharp as cut glass. "You were just what?" No one answered. He gestured toward Maya. "Do you have any idea who this woman is?" Maya wanted to melt into the ground. Her throat tightened. She whispered, "Commander, don't." But he didn't stop. "This woman carried 3 SEALs, including me, through a burning Humvee under enemy fire. She pulled us out with her bare hands while bleeding from her own wounds." Gasps rippled through the audience. Cameras turned. Ethan's voice hardened. "She saved lives that day, saved my life, and you think she doesn't belong here?" The guards' faces drained of color. One lowered his head. The other shifted his weight, mumbling, "Sir, we didn't." "No," Ethan cut in. "You didn't think." He turned back to Maya, eyes softening for a moment. "Permission to honor you, Sergeant." She shook her head quickly. "At ease, Ross, please, this isn't necessary." He didn't listen. He and the other SEALs snapped to attention, 6 men, standing tall before her. Then together they saluted. A slow, deliberate salute, the kind you give not out of rank but respect. The parade ground went silent. Even the admiral on stage rose and returned the salute. For a long moment, the only sound was the flag flapping in the wind. Maya felt her eyes burn. She blinked hard, fighting it down. She'd seen soldiers die, seen brothers fall, but nothing had ever hit her like that silent, unified salute. Ethan's voice carried across the field. "Next time you see a Marine in uniform, you don't ask for credentials. You stand at attention." The crowd erupted. Applause thundered, rolling like surf against stone. Maya didn't move. She couldn't. She felt something break loose inside, not pain, not pride. Something quieter, like finally being seen after years of being invisible. When it was over, the SEAL stood beside her as she walked toward the stage. The guard stepped back, eyes lowered. Jalen spotted her, his face lit up, and for the first time in years, Maya smiled without effort. The applause kept going long after she sat down. But what no one knew, not the crowd, not the admiral, not even Ethan, was that Maya had received a letter the night before. A letter stamped with the insignia of the Department of Defense. Reassignment orders. Classified. A new mission. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even Jalen. Because the mission wasn't about combat this time. It was something else, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. As the anthem began to play and jets roared overhead, she slipped a hand into her pocket, feeling the edge of that envelope. Her jaw clenched. She thought about the years behind her, the faces of soldiers she couldn't save, the nights she spent staring at ceilings too quiet to sleep. And for the first time in a long time, she felt afraid. Not of dying, she made peace with that long ago, but of being forgotten. That's the truth most soldiers never say out loud. They can live with pain, but not with being erased. The crowd still clapped, unaware. Jalen threw his cap in the air, laughing, bright-eyed, proud, everything she once was. And Maya Hale sat there, smiling for him, hiding the storm behind her calm. Because while the world saw a hero being honored, she felt something ending. Something that had defined her entire life. She looked at the flag, at the 6 men who still stood near her, and whispered to herself, "Don't let them see you fall." That was the rule, the first and last one she ever learned. But she didn't know then, this wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of another battle, one that wouldn't be fought with bullets or medals, but with truth. And somewhere deep down, she could already feel it coming. Something was waiting for her beyond the ceremony, in the orders she hadn't opened, in the mission no one had spoken of yet. Something that would test everything she believed about honor, loyalty, and what it really meant to serve. The music swelled. The jets vanished into the sky, and as the applause faded, Maya whispered a quiet promise to herself, one only the wind could hear. "I won't stay silent this time." Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And soon she would act again. What do you do when honor feels heavier than your own skin? For Sergeant Maya Hale, the applause still echoed long after the crowd had gone home. She stood alone near the water's edge, the Naval Academy shrinking behind her, sunlight bleeding into gold over the bay. The flags were down now, the parade field empty, the echoes of that salute still replaying in her mind. People thought recognition fixed everything, that being seen was enough. But it was. Not when you knew what came next. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the envelope. It was still sealed, Department of Defense letterhead, her name typed in black ink. The weight of it felt heavier than any rifle she'd ever carried. Her fingers hesitated. For years she'd lived on routine: orders, missions, debriefs, follow, execute, endure. But this one, she already knew it wouldn't be like the others. She tore it open. The paper inside was crisp, impersonal. Her orders were brief. Subject: Operation Silent Harbor. Location: classified. Assignment: Liaison, Joint Special Operations Command. Duration: indefinite. No explanation, no details, just coordinates. And a final line handwritten at the bottom, rare in her world. "We need your eyes, not your weapon." She read it twice. Her eyes lingered on that last sentence. Not your weapon. That wasn't a mission, that was a test. Maya folded the paper and stared out at the ocean, feeling the wind tug at her uniform. The same uniform that had once felt like armor now felt thin, like it couldn't hold back what was coming. She didn't know then the mission wasn't about foreign enemies. It was about something much closer. Something inside the walls she had served all her life. 2 weeks later, Maya stood outside a gray government building tucked deep in the Maryland woods. No nameplate, no flag, just concrete, cameras, and a silence too precise to be natural. The soldier at the gate scanned her ID and frowned. "Sergeant Hale, you're early." "Bad habit," she said, forcing a small smile. He didn't smile back, just waved her through. Inside, the air smelled like antiseptic and electricity. Screens hummed quietly. She followed a woman in a gray suit down a long hallway, past closed doors marked restricted, until they reached a small briefing room. "Someone will be with you shortly," the woman said, then left without another word. Maya sat alone. The table was spotless, the walls bare. Only a small digital clock ticked softly in the corner. And then the door opened. Commander Ethan Ross stepped in. She froze. He looked different out of uniform, black suit, no insignia, but the eyes were the same, sharp, steady, carrying too much. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said. "I didn't expect to ask for you," he replied. He sat across from her, sliding a file across the table. "Operation Silent Harbor. It's not on record yet. That's why they picked people who know how to disappear." She didn't touch the file. "What is it?" Ethan hesitated. "Before I tell you that, you need to know this isn't combat, not the way we're used to it." "I figured. They said they needed my eyes." He nodded slowly. "And your conscience." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. "Meaning?" He opened the file. Photos, names, reports. And then an image that made her blood run cold. A girl, maybe 16, sitting on a cot inside a dark holding room. Eyes tired, wrists bandaged. Maya leaned closer. "Who is she?" "Call sign, whisper." Ethan's jaw flexed. "She's not supposed to exist, but somehow she knows things she shouldn't. Names, operations, classified movements, intel leaks traced back to her messages online. Then she's a threat." "That's what the agency said," but he exhaled slowly. "I don't think she's the source. I think she's the evidence." Maya frowned. "Of what?" He met her eyes. "Corruption inside our own." For a long moment, the room was silent. Outside somewhere, a generator hummed. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you don't flinch," he said simply, "and because they trust you less than they fear you." That made her laugh, a dry, tired sound. "So I'm their watchdog." "You're their conscience," he said again. "If she's innocent, we save her. If she's not, I know how it ends." He closed the file. "You start tomorrow, observation only, no contact, not yet." Maya nodded, but her gut already knew she wouldn't be able to just observe. That night she stayed in the government housing they'd assigned her, a plain, sterile room that smelled like bleach and bureaucracy. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing echoes of the applause from the graduation. It already felt like another lifetime. In the quiet, she thought about the girl, Whisper, and the bandages around her wrists. She'd seen wounds like that before. Not from interrogation, from desperation. She turned on her side and whispered to herself, "Don't get involved." But she already knew she would. Because soldiers like Maya Hale didn't know how to watch pain and stay still. The next morning, the mission began. They called it an observation deck, but it was really a surveillance booth behind a one-way mirror. On the other side of the glass sat the girl alone, small, staring at nothing. Her file said Whisper wasn't her real name. No one even knew that. She hadn't spoken since they brought her in. Not a word. Not to the guards, not to the psychologists. Just silence. But her silence scared people, because somehow classified information kept leaking anyway. And the patterns, the timing, pointed here. Maya sat there for hours studying her. The girl looked fragile, starved, but her eyes, they weren't afraid. They were calculating, watching everything. When Maya shifted her weight, the girl's gaze flicked toward the mirror, as if she knew. The silence stretched. And then, barely perceptible, the girl smiled. Just a faint curl of the lips. Maya's breath caught. She leaned closer to the glass. The girl mouthed something. No sound, just 3 silent words. "I know you." Maya froze, her pulse spiked. She hit the intercom. "Commander Ross, get in here." Seconds later, he entered. "What is it?" She just said something." He looked through the glass. "She hasn't spoken in days." Not out loud, but she mouthed it. "She said she knows me." Ross frowned. "You've never seen her before." "Never." "Then she's bluffing." "Maybe," Maya said, but her voice was tight. "Or maybe she's not." The girl kept staring at the mirror, still smiling. Ross lowered his voice. "Maya, don't engage. Observation only." She nodded, "Right." But as he left, she couldn't look away. How could a stranger know her name? And why did she feel like this wasn't the first time those eyes had seen her? Hours passed, night fell. The observation lights dimmed to blue. The girl finally lay down, facing the wall. Maya sat there, exhausted, but her mind wouldn't stop. Something about that smile, it wasn't arrogance, it was recognition. She thought back to Helmand, to the convoy, to the smoke, the blood, the screaming. She remembered the villagers, the ones they'd evacuated, the faces she barely had time to see. One in particular, a child, maybe 5 years old, clinging to her father's leg as they loaded civilians into the trucks. Brown eyes, a small scar above the brow. Maya's breath hitched. No, it couldn't be. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair back. Through the glass the girl stirred, as if sensing her thoughts. Maya turned off the monitor and stormed into the hallway. She needed answers now. Ross found her outside, leaning against the concrete wall, hands trembling slightly. "You saw something," he said. "She's not random," Maya said quietly. "That girl, I think I've seen her before." "From where?" "Helmand Province, during the evac. The family we couldn't," she stopped. He frowned. "Maya, that was 12 years ago." "I know, but the scar, the eyes." "That's impossible." She looked at him. "You said this mission wasn't combat, then what is it?" Ross hesitated. "It's cleanup." Her stomach dropped. "Cleanup of what?" He didn't answer. She stepped closer, voice low. "Tell me, Ethan." He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw guilt there. Real, raw guilt. "Of what we buried," he said quietly, "and who we left behind." The night wind stirred, cold and sharp. Somewhere in the distance a siren wailed. Maya stood there, every muscle locked. It wasn't just a mission anymore. It was history clawing its way back. And in that moment she realized the girl didn't just know her. She remembered her. The convoy, the gunfire, the promise Maya made to a dying man she couldn't save. a promise to protect his child. And now that child was here, in custody, branded a threat. Her chest ached as the truth began to take shape, piece by piece, memory by memory. This wasn't about intelligence leaks. It was about erasure. Someone had tried to erase the evidence of a mission gone wrong. And the girl, Whisper, was the last living proof. Maya looked at the dark window of the facility, where the girl lay awake inside. For the first time since Helmand, her voice trembled. "What have we done?" Ross didn't answer, he just looked away. The wind carried her words into the trees, vanishing like smoke. And in that silence, something inside Maya shifted. She'd spent her whole life following orders. Now, for the first time, she wasn't sure she could. Because sometimes the hardest battle isn't against an enemy. It's against the truth you swore to protect. And truth, Maya realized, has a way of fighting back. How far would you go to see the truth, even if it destroyed the uniform you wore? For Sergeant Maya Hale, that question stopped being theoretical the night she saw the girl's eyes through the glass. They were the same eyes she'd seen in Helmand Province 12 years ago, wide, terrified, clinging to her father's hand as dust and fire swallowed the sky. Now those same eyes were behind reinforced glass, watching her. And no amount of medals, no amount of orders could make that image leave her mind. Sleep didn't come that night. The ceiling of her government-issued room stared back at her, blank and cold. The hum of the ventilation felt like a metronome, marking the seconds of guilt. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the child scream again. The one she hadn't been able to save. Back then the mission had gone wrong, horribly wrong. Intel failure, civilian casualties, a family caught in the crossfire. The report said no survivors. But reports lie. And maybe, Maya thought, that's what Operation Silent Harbor really was, a machine built to keep the lie clean. At dawn, she walked into the observation booth. The same mirror, the same silence. Whisper, the girl, was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the cot. She wasn't looking at the camera or the guards. She was staring straight at the mirror. At Maya. Maya didn't press the intercom. She didn't speak. She just stared back. Minutes stretched into an hour. No movement, no words, just two worlds divided by glass, soldier, and ghost. Then, without warning, Whisper raised her hand slowly and placed her palm against the glass. Maya's chest tightened. It was the smallest gesture, but it wasn't random. It was memory. She'd seen that gesture before. A little girl hiding behind her father, palm raised to signal stop shooting, were not a threat. Maya's breath trembled. She pressed her own hand to the glass, mirroring the motion. For a second, something passed between them. Recognition, grief, something unspoken that reached deeper than language. Then the door burst open. Sergeant Hale. Two men in plain suits stepped in, their tone sharp. "You're not authorized for contact." She turned slowly, face calm. "I didn't speak." "Protocol prohibits gestures too," one said. "Protocol prohibits empathy now," she asked quietly. They exchanged a look. "You're dismissed until further notice." Maya didn't argue. She just nodded and left. But as she walked down the corridor, she knew this was it, the first crack in the wall. She wasn't supposed to see Whisper as human. But she did. And that meant the mission had already changed. Later that day, she found Ethan Ross waiting for her outside the facility. His sleeves were rolled, his eyes tired. "Word travels fast," he said. "You made contact." "She made contact," Maya corrected. "You know what I mean." "I didn't say a word." He looked at her for a long time, then sighed. "You shouldn't have come back." "I didn't come back to obey," she said quietly. "I came back to understand." He nodded slowly, almost sadly. "Then understand this, if she's who you think she is, she's in danger, and so are you. From who? He hesitated, not from the enemy, from the people cleaning up after them. Maya looked at him hard. You knew. I suspected. And you stayed silent. His jaw clenched. We were ordered to. There's a difference between silence and survival. No, she said, there is, not when silence buries the truth. Ethan didn't respond. He looked away. The wind rustled through the trees. The moment stretched heavy, unfinished. Let me talk to her, Maya said finally. He shook his head. That's not your call. It's not yours either, she shot back. If she's what you think, if she's proof, then someone has to hear her. Someone already did, Ethan said quietly, and they locked her up for it. Maya stared at him. Then I'll hear her myself. That night, Maya returned to the facility. She used her clearance card, still active, though it wouldn't be for long. Most of the staff had gone home. The corridors were empty, lights dimmed to emergency brightness. She moved like she used to in the field, silent, controlled, pulse steady. When she reached the holding room, Whisper was awake again, sitting on the floor this time, drawing on a piece of paper with a dull pencil. Maya unlocked the door. The sound was soft, just a click, but the girl looked up immediately. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Maya stepped inside. Do you remember me? She asked quietly. The girl studied her, eyes cautious. Then she nodded. Maya's throat tightened. Helmand, your father. Whisper interrupted softly, her voice barely audible. He told me to find you. The words hit like a strike to the chest. Maya sank to her knees, staring at the girl. He didn't make it. I know, Whisper said. Her accent was faint, her tone steady. They told me he was a traitor, but he wasn't, was he? Maya shook her head, tears blurring her vision. No, he was one of the bravest men I knew. Whisper looked down. They said you left us. Maya froze. I didn't have a choice. They pulled us out under fire. But you didn't come back. The words weren't angry, just hollow, empty in a way that made them hurt more. Maya reached out slowly. If I could have. Whisper flinched, just slightly, enough to make Maya stop. I believe you, the girl whispered, but they don't. Who they? Whisper's eyes lifted. The ones who built this place. Maya swallowed. What do they want from you? Not what, the girl said quietly. Who? Maya frowned. Who? You, Whisper said. The room went silent. Maya blinked. Me. Whisper nodded. They said if I talked, if I told what happened, they'd bring you here. They said you finished the story. Maya's stomach turned cold. Finish it how? By proving it never happened. For the first time in years, Maya couldn't find words. She sat there, feeling the weight of every order she'd ever obeyed pressing down on her chest. They want me to erase you, she whispered. Whisper nodded once, like they erased my father. Footsteps. Maya turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, gun drawn. Step away from her, he said. Maya rose slowly. Ethan. You're compromising the mission. There is no mission, she snapped. There's a cover-up. His jaw tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, Maya said. You were there that day. You saw what happened. You saw who gave the order to fire. He said nothing. Whisper stood behind Maya now, silent, watching. Tell me, Ethan, Maya said softly. When did we start killing truth to protect our uniforms? His gun trembled slightly in his hand. Then he lowered it. I tried to protect you, he said. You protected the lie. He closed his eyes. You think exposing this will fix it? It'll destroy everything. Then maybe it deserves to be destroyed. Silence. Finally, he said, they'll come for both of you. I know, she said. Help us before they do. Ethan stared at her, then at Whisper, and for a moment the soldier in him flickered behind his eyes. He exhaled sharply. There's a file, sublevel 3, it's the only copy left. Get it and maybe you'll have a chance. He handed her his access card. You didn't get this from me. Maya nodded, thank you. As she turned to leave, he grabbed her arm. Maya, he said, if you find what I think you'll find, don't come back here. She looked at him one last time. I stopped coming back a long time ago. They moved fast. Down empty corridors, through security doors, past the hum of servers that kept the lies alive. Whisper walked silently beside her, her steps careful, precise. When they reached the sublevel, the air changed, colder, damp, metallic. Rows of archive cabinets lined the walls. Maya swiped the card, a lock clicked open. Inside was a single folder, yellowed, stamped with red letters, Operation Silent Harbor Classified Terminal File. She opened it. Photos, transcripts, body counts. And at the bottom, a signed order. Authorizing an airstrike, on coordinates matching a civilian compound. Signed by an admiral still serving in the Pentagon. The same man who'd stood on stage at the graduation, clapping for her, smiling as the crowd honored her service. Whisper's voice broke the silence. That's why they can't let me go. Maya's hands trembled. They blamed your father. They always blame the dead, Whisper whispered. Maya closed the folder. Not this time. Sirens blared overhead. Red lights flashed. They know, Whisper said. Maya stuffed the folder into her jacket. Then we run. They sprinted down the corridor as alarms screamed around them. Overhead a voice echoed, containment breach, secure all exits. Maya's boots pounded the floor, her shoulder throbbing with every step. But for the first time since Hellman, she felt alive again, not as a soldier, not as an officer, but as a woman doing the right thing. They reached the service door. Maya slammed the override. The wind hit them like freedom. They didn't look back. And as they disappeared into the dark woods beyond the facility, Maya knew there was no going back. The truth was out, even if only 2 people carried it. And somewhere in the distance, as the alarms faded into the night, Maya whispered to herself, sometimes loyalty isn't about who you serve, it's about who you save. How long can you run before the truth catches up with you? For Sergeant Maya Hale, the forest was her new battlefield. No uniform, no flag, no backup, just her, the girl, and the file that could set fire to everything she once protected. The cold cut through her jacket as dawn crept in. The air smelled like pine and rain, clean, almost too clean after the sterile walls of the compound. Somewhere far behind them, helicopters scoured the sky. She could hear them, distant, mechanical heartbeats pounding through the mist. Whisper kept close. She was quiet, careful, but not fragile. Maya noticed that, the way she moved, the way her eyes scanned the tree line like someone who'd learned to survive without anyone's permission. How far are we? The girl asked. Far enough, Maya said, though she wasn't sure. They stopped near a creek. Maya crouched, filling her canteen, watching the water swirl around the rocks. It felt wrong, having to hide from the same flag she'd saluted her whole life. But the file in her pack changed everything. One folder, a few signatures, a lie big enough to bury a generation. Whisper sat beside her, arms wrapped around her knees. They'll come for us. I know. You're not scared. Maya looked at her, then at the reflection in the water, 2 faces framed by gray clouds. I've been scared for 20 years, she said softly. You just stop showing it. The girl didn't answer, but her eyes softened, a flicker of trust, fragile and real. Maya stood, brushing dirt from her hands. Come on, we move. They followed the creek until the trees thinned, and the faint outline of an old barn appeared ahead. The structure sagged under years of neglect, paint peeled, roof caved in at one end. It was the kind of place no one looked twice at, perfect. Inside, dust motes drifted through broken light. An old tractor rusted in the corner. A pile of hay still clung to the scent of memory. Maya closed the door behind them, checked the corners, then dropped her pack. "We'll rest here." Whisper sat cross-legged on the floor. "You used to fight," she said quietly. "I still do," Maya replied. "Just different enemies." "Is the government your enemy now?" Maya froze mid-motion. "No," she said after a pause. "The people who corrupted it are. There's a difference." Whisper tilted her head. "You still believe that?" Maya looked away. "I have to." Hours passed. The forest outside buzzed with insects and the low hum of distant engines. Maya studied the folder again, spreading its contents across the dusty floor. Black and white photos, coordinates, an airstrike order signed by a man she once saluted with pride. Every detail confirmed the same truth. Helmand wasn't an accident. The target wasn't insurgents. It was civilians. And someone had rewritten the story to bury it. She ran a thumb across one of the pages, the ink slightly faded. "Your father tried to stop it," she murmured. "He called for abort. They cut his comms. They called him rogue to clean their conscience." Whisper's voice cracked. "And you?" Maya closed her eyes. "I followed orders." The words hung in the air like gunfire. Whisper didn't speak. She just looked at Maya, not with hate, but with the kind of sadness that doesn't have a name. Finally, Maya whispered, "I've been carrying that silence for 12 years. Whisper looked down. "Then maybe it's time to stop." By nightfall, they lit a small fire near the barn's broken doorway. The light flickered against the walls, painting ghosts across the wood. Maya sharpened a stick absently, her mind turning over plans. They couldn't go to the press, too risky. Every channel was monitored. They couldn't trust command. And going public without proof would make them vanish in hours. Whisper leaned against the wall. "You said this file is proof. Isn't that enough?" "Not yet," Maya said. "They'll call it fabricated, chain of custody matters." "What's that mean?" "It means we need witnesses, someone inside who'll stand up." The girl gave a small, bitter laugh. "People don't stand up, they kneel." "Some do," Maya said, "but not all." "Who would help us?" Maya hesitated. One name came to mind, a name she hadn't spoken in years. Colonel Ava Raines, intelligence officer, once her mentor. Now head of a classified oversight committee in D.C. "She might," Maya said finally, "if she still believes in what we used to fight for." Whisper looked doubtful. "And if she does?" "Then we run again." They slept in shifts. Maya's dreams were restless, flashes of Helmand, the roar of engines, the sight of a little girl clutching her father's dog tags. She woke before dawn. The fire had burned low. Whisper was still asleep, curled beneath Maya's jacket. For the first time since they met, she looked like a child, not a witness, not a weapon, just a kid who had lost everything too soon. Maya stood, stretching her aching shoulder, and stepped outside. The forest was painted in pale blue light. Dew clung to the grass. For a brief second, the world was quiet, clean. Then her radio crackled. She froze. The signal was faint, distorted, but the voice was familiar. "Maya, if you can hear this, they're tracking you. You have less than 12 hours. It was Ethan. Static swallowed the rest. Maya gritted her teeth. She turned the dial, but the signal was gone. 12 hours. That meant the search teams were closing in. She went back inside, shaking Whisper awake. "We move now." "Where?" "Washington." The girl blinked. "That's suicide." "So staying here." They ditched the forest by noon, following backroads through small towns. Maya traded her military jacket for an old flannel from a gas station. Whisper wore a baseball cap pulled low. To anyone watching, they were just another traveler and her daughter. But Maya's eyes never stopped scanning mirrors, corners, exits. Old instincts, impossible to turn off. Whisper broke the silence. Why do you still wear your tags? Maya touched the chain under her shirt. Because they remind me who I used to be. Do you miss it? The uniform, no, the purpose, every day. The girl looked out the window. Maybe your purpose changed. Maya smiled faintly. Maybe. They reached D.C. by nightfall, rain falling in sheets, traffic lights bleeding red through the windshield. Maya parked 3 blocks from a nondescript building near DuPont Circle. Colonel Rain's office. No insignia, no signs, just glass and power. She turned to whisper, "Stay in the car. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, you run, don't stop." "I'm not leaving you," Whisper said. Maya's eyes softened. "You're not leaving me, you're finishing what I started." The girl's jaw clenched, but she nodded. Maya tucked the file into her coat and stepped into the rain. Inside, the building smelled of coffee and secrets. Security scanners, metal detectors, eyes that followed her without recognition. 12 years was a long time to vanish from the system. She reached the top floor and knocked on a frosted glass door. "Enter." The voice hadn't changed, clipped, composed, familiar. Colonel Ava Rains looked up from her desk as Maya stepped in. For a moment, silence, then Ava leaned back slowly. "I thought you were dead." "Almost," Maya said, "but I got better." Ava smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't. "You shouldn't be here." "I found something." "I'm sure you did. You always find trouble." Maya dropped the folder on her desk. "Read it." Ava hesitated, then opened it. Her expression didn't change, not much, but her hands tightened slightly on the papers. After a moment, she closed the folder. "You shouldn't have come here, Maya." "Don't tell me you didn't know." "I knew rumors," Ava said softly, "not proof." "Well, now you have it." Ava's jaw worked. "You think walking in here with this changes anything? It doesn't. They'll bury it again, and you with it." "Then help me make it impossible to bury." Ava stared at her, that old steel behind her eyes. "You don't understand the scope of this." "I understand enough. They killed civilians and called it strategy." "And you think the world wants to know that?" Maya's voice cracked. "They deserve to." Ava stood, walked to the window. Rain streaked down the glass. "You've always been like this. Noble, stubborn, that's why I liked you, and why they'll destroy you." "I can live with that," Maya said. "What I can't live with is silence." Ava turned back to her. "You're not the only one who's tired of silence." She pressed a button on her desk. The door clicked, locked. "You have the only copy." Maya hesitated. "Yes." "Then we move now." Maya blinked. "You're helping." Ava gave a small, sharp smile. "Let's just say I'm overdue for redemption." Outside, Whisper saw the flash first, headlights in the rain, unmarked SUVs pulling up fast. Her heart lurched. She grabbed the backpack and bolted from the car. Through the window above, Maya saw the same lights. Her blood ran cold. "They're here." Ava was already moving. Stairwell now. They ran, down the corridor, through the emergency exit. Boots thundered above, shouts, radios. By the time they hit the alley, Whisper was there, soaked, shaking. "Come on," she cried. Maya pulled her close, and the 3 of them disappeared into the night, sirens wailing behind them, city lights flickering like dying stars. Hours later, they found refuge in an abandoned metro tunnel. The echo of dripping water filled the darkness. Ava spread the folder across a concrete bench, scanning it under a flashlight. "This is worse than I thought. This isn't one mission, Maya. It's a pattern." Maya frowned. "Pattern?" Ava nodded grimly. "Helmand was just the first. Silent Harbor's been running for over a decade. Each accident, civilian strike, missing file, vanishing witness, all tied to the same directive. Controlled losses, managed truths." Whisper shivered. "And my father was the first to question it." Ava said quietly. That's why they erased him. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Then we burn it down. Ava looked at her. Burning it won't be enough. We expose it to the people, to Congress, to every journalist who still believes in truth. And if that kills us, Maya asked. Ava's eyes softened. Then at least we'll die clean. Whisper looked between them. So what do we do now? Maya looked down at the folder, then at the faint light bleeding in from the tunnel entrance. We fight the only way we have left, she said. Not with bullets, with truth. The flashlight dimmed. The city above kept breathing, unaware that 3 souls beneath it were about to change everything. And as Maya looked at the girl beside her, the living proof of a lie, she made herself another silent vow. They buried the truth once, she whispered. This time it's going to rise. Because some wars aren't fought overseas. They're fought in the hearts of the people who come home. And sometimes survival isn't winning. It's refusing to be silent. How far can loyalty stretch before it breaks? And when it finally does, who are you loyal to? Your country or your conscience? For Sergeant Maya Hale, that question stopped being abstract somewhere between the shadows of the old metro tunnel and the sound of distant sirens. The file sat between them, the only truth left of a decade-long lie. Whisper slept nearby, her head resting on her knees. Ava Rain sat across from Maya, flashlight flickering over the worn pages. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the underground. No more uniforms, no more orders, just 3 fugitives bound by guilt, by loss, by a truth too big to carry. Ava finally spoke. There's an independent journalist, she said quietly. Name's Riley Ward. Used to work defense press before they blacklisted him. If anyone can publish this without burying it, it's him. Maya nodded slowly. How do we reach him? Ava pulled out a burner phone, the kind you don't register and never call twice. He runs signal dead zones around DC. You send one code, one word. If he answers, we move. If he does. She didn't finish. Maya's gaze drifted toward the girl, sleeping under a thin blanket. He'll answer. Ava gave a faint, tired smile. You always did believe in people. I don't, Maya said softly, but I believe in what they can do when they remember who they are. By morning, the tunnels smelled of rust and smoke. They hadn't slept. The file was scanned, copied to encrypted drives, stored in 3 separate flash units. Ava handled the encryption. Maya handled logistics, routes, fallback spots, contingency plans. Whisper mostly watched, silent but observant, eyes too sharp for her age. At one point she asked, if we show them the truth, will they stop lying? Maya didn't answer right away. Finally she said, no, but maybe they'll start listening. Whisper nodded, not convinced but wanting to be. They made contact with Riley Ward that evening, through a coded ping sent from an old communications relay disguised as a payphone near the river. 3 taps, 1 pause, 2 taps. An old signal from the days before everything went digital. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Maya picked it up. A man's voice came through, steady but wary. You've got something worth dying for. Maya's reply was calm, something worth living for. Static, then, meet me at midnight, 14th Street Bridge, East Span, come alone. The line went dead. Ava frowned, classic setup. Maya nodded, still our best shot. Night fell like a curtain of steel. The rain returned, thin, cold, relentless. Maya parked the stolen sedan under the bridge, wipers ticking softly. Ava stayed behind with Whisper. If it smells wrong, walk away. I don't walk away, Maya said, checking the flash drive in her pocket. That's what I'm afraid of, Ava murmured. The bridge was empty except for the rain. Streetlights buzzed overhead. Cars hissed by on the upper level, their lights cutting through the fog. Maya waited. The city skyline shimmered faintly in the distance. Minutes stretched, nothing. Then a flicker of movement. A man stepped out from the shadows, hooded jacket, hands visible, unarmed. "Riley Ward," he said simply. Maya studied him. "You're late." "You're early," he countered. "Bad habit for people who survive this long." He approached slowly, eyes scanning her like a threat assessment. "You brought it." "I brought truth," she said. "You decide what to do with it." He smirked faintly. "You sound like one of them." "I was." She handed him the flash drive. "There's more, redundant copies. I want full publication, no filters, no edits." Riley nodded. "If this is what you say it is, it won't just rattle cages, it'll burn them down." "That's the point." He pocketed the drive. "Then we better." A sharp crack split the air. Gunfire. Maya dove behind a concrete pillar. Riley dropped to the ground, clutching his shoulder. "Move," she shouted, dragging him behind cover. Another shot. This time closer. Maya drew her sidearm, the one she swore she'd never carry again, and scanned the darkness. Through the rain she saw them, silhouettes moving with precision, tactical formation, suppressed rifles. "Government kill team." "Damn it," she muttered, "they tracked us." Riley winced, blood seeping through his jacket. "How?" Maya didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because at that moment, a realization hit her gut like a punch: the phone. The signal wasn't intercepted, it was fed to them. Someone on the inside gave them away. "Ave." Maya fired 3 controlled bursts, covering their retreat. "Can you walk?" she asked Riley. "Barely." "Then crawl faster." They slipped under the bridge, rain turning to mist around them. Vehicles screeched above, command vans, armored units closing in. Maya's mind raced. Ava had the original file. Whisper was with her if they'd been traced. Her chest constricted. She had to get back. By the time she reached the metro entrance, it was nearly dawn. The tunnels glowed with faint emergency lights. She moved silently, gun raised, heart pounding. The sound hit her first, not gunfire, not shouting, just breathing. Ragged, slow. She turned the corner and froze. Ava sat on the ground, back against the wall, hand pressed to her side, blood leaking through her fingers. Across from her, 2 bodies lay motionless, agents in black tactical gear. And in the far corner, Whisper stood, clutching a pistol with both hands, eyes wide and wet. Maya rushed forward. "Ava." Ava managed a weak smile. "Guess I didn't walk away fast enough." Maya knelt beside her, pulling her hand away from the wound. "You'll be fine. We'll get you help." Ava shook her head. "No time, they're still coming." "Where's the file?" Ava nodded toward Whisper. "She has it. I made her memorize the route to the fallback contact." Maya looked at the girl. "You did good." Whisper's voice trembled. "They tried to take it, she stopped them." Ava coughed, blood flecking her lips. "You were right, Maya. Silence kills more than bullets." Maya's vision blurred. "Don't you dare go poetic on me now." Ava smiled faintly. "Old habits." Maya took her hand, gripping tight. "We'll finish this." "I know," Ava whispered, "but you'll have to do it without me." Her eyes flickered once, then stilled. Maya froze, the world narrowing into a single sound, the steady drip of water on concrete. Whisper whispered, "She's gone." Maya nodded, voice breaking, "She's gone." For a long time, neither moved. Then Maya stood, sliding her weapon back into her holster. Her face was unreadable, her eyes like stone. "Take the drive," she said. "We keep moving." They rode the service rails west, away from the city, toward the industrial outskirts. The tunnels stretched endlessly, lit by the occasional flicker of blue sparks. Whisper sat in silence beside her, clutching the drive. Finally the girl spoke. "You trusted her." "I still do," Maya said softly. "She just ran out of time." Whisper looked down. She said they'd always find us. They will, Maya said, but not before we finish this. How? Maya exhaled, staring into the dark. Riley's drive was compromised. We'll have to go analog, physical drop, hard copy. Where? Someplace sacred enough to make them hesitate. The girl frowned. Sacred. Maya nodded slowly. Arlington. 3 days later, they reached Virginia under assumed names. They moved like ghosts, buses, cargo trains, backroads. Each mile erased the person Maya used to be. Each silence made Whisper a little stronger. The cemetery gates loomed ahead at sunset. White marble stretched across rolling hills, endless rows of names carved in stone. Men and women Maya once served with. Some she'd saved. Some she couldn't. They walked in silence until they reached Section 60, the section for the fallen of Afghanistan. Maya knelt before one headstone. Marcus Porter, United States Marine Corps. Whisper crouched beside her. My father. Maya nodded, her voice trembling. He saved more people than he ever knew. She pulled the flash drive from her jacket, wrapped it in a plastic sleeve, and placed it beneath the stone's edge. Whisper watched. Someone will find it. Maya nodded. A journalist comes here every week to photograph the graves. He'll see the marker, he'll know. Whisper was quiet for a long moment. Then, so we did it. Maya looked out over the endless white stones. No, we started it. They stayed until nightfall. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the soft hum of the city in the distance. Whisper lay back on the grass, staring up at the stars. Do you ever wish you could forget? She asked. Maya smiled faintly. Every day. Then why don't you? Because forgetting how they win. The girl nodded slowly, and remembering. Remembering's how we heal. Later, as they walked down the hill toward the road, headlights flared in the distance. Too bright, too close. Maya's hand went to her weapon. Stay behind me. The car slowed, stopped. For a moment silence, then the door opened. Ethan Ross stepped out, hands raised. Maya's chest tightened. You followed us. I protected you, he said. There's a difference. After you led them to us. I didn't, he said quickly. They tracked the journalist, not me. Riley's alive. Barely. He sent a message. Your drop worked. Maya blinked. You're serious. He nodded. It's out, everywhere. News feeds, international outlets. They can't contain it. Whisper looked up at Maya, eyes wide. Then it's over. Maya exhaled slowly, looking toward the horizon, where dawn bled into the gray. No, she said softly, it's just beginning. Ethan nodded. There's a safe house in Norfolk. You'll need to disappear for a while. Maya studied him. And you? I'll take the heat. She frowned. Why? He smiled faintly. Because once you carried me out of a fire, guess it's my turn. Maya shook her head. Ethan. But he was already walking away. As he reached the car, he looked back. Sometimes the only way to serve your country is to stand against it. Then he was gone. The first sunlight broke across the graves, gold on white. Whisper took Maya's hand. What happens now? Maya looked at her, this girl who had lost everything, yet still stood unbroken. Now, she said softly, we live with what we saved. Whisper smiled faintly. And what we lost. Maya looked out over the graves. We carry that too. The wind stirred, gentle, almost kind. And for the first time in years, Maya didn't feel like she was running. She was standing still, and somehow that felt stronger. Because sometimes victory doesn't roar. It whispers. And sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is tell the truth. What happens after the truth is finally heard? What happens when the silence breaks and the world starts to listen? For Sergeant Maya Hale, the answer came 3 days later. They were hiding in an old boathouse along the Virginia coast, a forgotten structure swallowed by reeds and fog. The air smelled of salt and rust, the floorboards creaking like old bones. Whisper sat on the steps, knees pulled to her chest, staring out at the gray horizon. She didn't say much anymore. She didn't have to. The entire world was saying everything for them. Because the truth was everywhere. Every newsfeed, every channel, every headline. Leaked documents reveal civilian casualties in cover-up operation. High-ranking officials under investigation for war crimes. Whistleblower claims shake the foundations of military integrity. They didn't use names, not yet, but Maya knew it was only a matter of time. You can erase a name from a report, but not from a memory. She turned on the small, battery-powered radio, tuning past static until the voices became clear. Investigators are confirming that evidence linked to the alleged Silent Harbor program originated from inside the Department of Defense. While officials deny any wrongdoing, calls for congressional hearings are growing by the hour. Maya turned it off. The quiet returned, heavier now. Whisper looked over her shoulder. They know. They know, Maya said softly. And us. Maya's jaw tightened. Not yet. Will they come? Maya nodded once, eventually. The girl looked back at the sea. Then we wait. That night the boathouse was wrapped in fog. The world outside seemed suspended, no wind, no sound, just the steady rhythm of waves breaking on distant rocks. Maya sat near a lantern, cleaning her sidearm out of habit more than need. The weapon was unloaded. Her mind was. Each thought came like a fragment: Ethan's sacrifice, Ava's blood, the look on Whisper's face when she realized her father's name had been cleared. For years, Maya had lived with the noise of regret. But now, there was something worse, the quiet that follows justice. Because justice, she was learning, didn't heal, it exposed. And exposure didn't set you free, it stripped you bare. Whisper's voice broke the silence. You don't sleep much. Maya smiled faintly. Neither do you. Night's too loud, the girl murmured. Maya tilted her head, loud. Inside, Whisper said, tapping her temple. When everything goes quiet outside, that's when it starts talking. Maya nodded slowly. Yeah, I know that sound. They sat like that for a while, two soldiers from different wars, one trained by the system, one scarred by it, sharing the same silence. Finally, Maya asked, what will you do if they catch us? Whisper shrugged. Tell them the truth again. Maya smiled. You sound like Ava. She was brave. She was tired, Maya said, but that's what bravery looks like sometimes. 2 days later, the first consequence arrived. A headline scrolled across a cracked tablet they found in town. Admiral Peter, HALSTROM, RESIGNS, amid investigation. Beneath it, a photo, the same man who had once stood on the stage at the graduation, applauding Maya as the crowd cheered. Now his eyes looked smaller, hollow. Whisper stared at the image. That's him. Maya nodded. That's him. What happens to him now? He'll stand before people who still remember what honor means, Maya said. And for the first time, he'll have to answer questions no one could ask before. Is that justice? Maya thought about that for a long moment. No, she said finally. It's accountability. Justice comes later. The girl frowned. Later when? When the people who ordered him to do it stop hiding behind flags. Whisper looked down. That could take forever. Maya exhaled slowly. Then we keep reminding them. That night, Maya dreamed of Helmand again. The desert wind, the convoy, the flash, the sound that never leaves. But this time the dream changed. This time when she looked back, the smoke cleared and through it she saw a girl standing tall, older, alive. Whisper. And for once the dream didn't end in guilt. It ended in peace. When Maya woke, The dawn light was soft and golden, the kind of light that makes even broken things look whole for a moment. She found Whisper outside, skipping stones on the water. "You should sleep," the girl said without turning. "I could say the same to you." Whisper grinned. "You taught me that rest is tactical, not emotional." Maya laughed softly. "I did say that, did I?" They stood side by side, watching the stones vanish into the still water. Then Whisper asked, "Do you think people will hate you for what you did?" Maya took a long breath. "Probably." "Does that bother you?" "It used to." "Why not now?" "Because sometimes doing the right thing doesn't make you good," Maya said. "It just means you couldn't live being wrong." The girl nodded slowly. "I think my father would have liked you." Maya smiled faintly. "He already did." By evening, the weather turned. The radio picked up emergency broadcasts, not about them, but about the world they'd changed. Protests in front of the Pentagon. Demands for hearings. Young soldiers posting videos, saying they wouldn't follow illegal orders anymore. It wasn't chaos. It was awakening. And Maya realized the truth had started to breathe on its own. It no longer needed her to survive. That thought should have been comforting. It was, because for people like her, purpose was survival. And now that purpose was fulfilled, she wasn't sure what was left. She looked at Whisper, the one she'd saved, the one who'd unknowingly saved her back. Maybe that was it. Maybe survival wasn't the point anymore. Maybe living was. Later, as the rain came in hard from the coast, they took shelter inside the boathouse. The world outside was blurred, washed clean for a moment. Maya sat near the open door, her dog tags glinting faintly in the lantern light. She pulled them off and handed them to Whisper. The girl frowned. "Why are you giving me these?" "They've been mine long enough," Maya said. "They don't belong to a soldier anymore. They belong to a survivor." Whisper turned them over in her hand, tracing the engraved letters. "Sergeant Maya Hale." Maya smiled softly. "Doesn't sound like me anymore." "What should I call you then?" She thought about it. Maya's fine. Titles are for people still pretending they know who they are. Whisper hung the tags around her own neck. "I'll keep them safe." "You already have," Maya said. Sometime after midnight she woke to a strange sound, not the sea, not the rain. A low hum, rhythmic and distant. "Helicopters." She was on her feet instantly. "Get your things." Whisper stirred, eyes wide. "They found us." "Maybe." Maya doused the lantern, grabbed her sidearm and peeked through the cracks in the wall. Searchlights swept across the marsh. Engines rumbled closer. Her stomach tightened. For a moment she thought of running deeper into the wetlands, vanishing again. But she stopped herself. No more running. She turned to Whisper. "If it's them, we walk out slow, hands visible, no sudden moves." The girl nodded, trembling slightly. Maya squeezed her shoulder. "Whatever happens, don't let them make you doubt what we did." Whisper's voice cracked. "Even if they take us." "Especially then." The light grew brighter, the sound louder. And then it stopped. A single helicopter hovered overhead, spotlight fixed on the boathouse. A loudspeaker crackled. "Sergeant Maya Hale, you are ordered to stand down. Step outside unarmed." Maya froze. The voice was calm, formal, familiar. She opened the door and stepped out into the light. The wind whipped her hair, rain stinging her face. She raised her hand slowly. Whisper followed, staying close. The helicopter door opened. And there in the floodlight's glare, Ethan Ross. "Alive." Maya's breath caught. "You're supposed to be." He held up a hand. "Not dead, not yet." He spoke through the speaker, his voice steady. "They want you for questioning, but they're not coming to kill you." "Why should I believe that?" "Because I'm the one who sent them," he said, "to protect you." Maya stared up, disbelief mixing with exhaustion. Protect me. You led me into this. I did, he said, and I'll lead you out, but not as fugitives, as witnesses. The rotors thundered, rain whipped sideways. Maya looked at Whisper, then back at Ethan. And if I refuse? He hesitated. Then you'll keep running until you have nothing left. But the world already knows, Maya. You've done your part. Let the truth do the rest. She stood there silent, the wind howling around her. Finally she lowered her hands. One condition. Ethan leaned forward. Name it. She comes with me. She nodded toward Whisper. Ethan's voice softened. She's the reason this started. She deserves to see how it ends. Maya gave a small, weary smile. Then we're done running. The helicopter lifted off, carrying them toward D.C. Below them the coast stretched like a scar, dark, infinite and beautiful. Whisper pressed her forehead against the glass. Do you think they'll listen to us? Maya watched the horizon. They already are. The girl smiled faintly. Then maybe this time they'll remember. Maya nodded. If they forget, we'll remind them. Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, painting the ocean gold. And as the city came into view, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not pride. Not relief. Something quieter. Peace. Because sometimes war isn't won by who fires last, but by who finally lays their weapon down. And sometimes survival isn't enough. You have to live for what survived with you. What does courage look like when the war is over and the whole world is watching? For Sergeant Maya Hale, courage wasn't in the gunfire anymore. It was in the silence before she spoke. 3 weeks had passed since the world learned the name Silent Harbor. 3 weeks since the news broke, the files went public, and the names behind them began to fall. And now she was being called to testify. No courtroom could hold the weight of that truth, so they built a special chamber inside the Capitol. It looked more like a war memorial than a hearing, flags on the walls, cameras overhead, 1,000 eyes pretending not to judge. At the center of it all sat Maya. Uniform pressed, hair tied back, hands folded neatly on the table. The same soldier they once honored, now called to explain what honor really meant. Whisper sat in the front row beside Ethan, watching. She looked smaller than Maya remembered, or maybe it was just the size of the room swallowing them both. The chairwoman adjusted her glasses and spoke into the microphone. Sergeant Hale, do you swear to tell the truth? Maya's voice was calm, low. I've already given most of my life to the truth, ma'am. One more day won't kill me. A ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the room. The chairwoman didn't smile. You may begin. At first she spoke softly. About the mission. About Helmand Province. About the mistake that wasn't a mistake at all. The airstrike ordered to wipe out a civilian compound. About Marcus Porter, the Marine who tried to stop it. About his daughter. And the lie that followed. The room stayed silent, except for the clicking of cameras. Every word was a confession, not of guilt, but of conscience. They told us it was a communications error, Maya said. It was. It was a cleanup order. The chairwoman leaned forward. Do you have proof of that? Yes, Maya said. You have it too. The documents in your hand are copies of what I retrieved from the sublevel archive. They carry signatures, including one belonging to Admiral Hallstrom. The name hung in the air like a dropped weapon. Someone coughed. A reporter's pen scratched furiously. Maya continued, her voice unwavering. You can read the orders yourself. They authorized collateral reduction protocols. That's bureaucratic language for killing civilians when it's convenient. The chairwoman frowned. You're accusing your own superiors of war crimes. I'm not accusing anyone, Maya said. I'm telling you what happened. And what gave you the right to release classified documents? Maya looked up slowly. The same thing that gave them the right to hide them, conviction. Gasps rippled through the audience. Whisper's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. The chairwoman's tone hardened. "Do you regret your actions, Sergeant?" Maya took a breath, her voice trembling just slightly. "I regret waiting 12 years to act. I regret every child I couldn't save. I regret believing silence was loyalty." "And what would you say to the families who lost loved ones because of these missions?" Maya's gaze softened. "I'd say I wish I could trade my medals for their forgiveness, but I can't. So instead, I'll trade my silence for their truth." The room went completely still. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Outside the chamber, protesters gathered: veterans, students, mothers, journalists. Some held signs that read "Justice for the Fallen." Others carried flags upside down, a signal of distress, not disrespect. The country was divided. Some called Maya a hero. Others called her a traitor. Inside, Maya didn't care what they called her anymore, because she finally knew who she was. When the hearing adjourned for recess, she stepped outside into the courtyard, the winter air sharp against her skin. Ethan followed, coat collar turned up, his usual calm cracked by exhaustion. "They're going to tear you apart," he said quietly. "I know. You could have stopped after the leak. You didn't have to testify." "Yes, I did," she said. "Paper doesn't bleed, people do." He sighed, leaning against the wall beside her. "You always had to make it personal." "It is personal," Maya said. "To her, to him, to every person whose name got turned into a statistic." Ethan studied her. "You realize they'll use you to clean their image. The institution will survive even if you don't." Maya gave a small, tired smile. "Then let them. I'm not here to destroy it. I'm here to remind it what it's supposed to be." He shook his head almost admiringly. "You're impossible." She looked toward the sky, gray and heavy. So was the truth. That evening, she returned to the safe house. Whisper sat at the table, watching the television, a news broadcast replaying Maya's testimony. The anchor's voice was solemn. "Sergeant Maya Hale's statements today have triggered formal inquiries into multiple past operations. Sources confirm that both congressional and international tribunals are preparing to open investigations." Whisper muted the volume. They listened. "Some of them," Maya said. "That's enough, isn't it?" Maya hesitated. "It's a start." Whisper studied her face. "You're not done, are you?" Maya sat down slowly. "When you spend your whole life following orders, learning to speak feels like rebellion. I think I still have a few words left." 2 days later, she was summoned again, this time to a closed session. No cameras, no public, just a handful of senior officials and military lawyers. They didn't ask about the morality of her choices. They asked about logistics, protocol, chain of command. In other words, damage control. One of the men leaned forward, his uniform immaculate. "Sergeant, you've placed the integrity of the entire defense structure in jeopardy. Do you understand that?" Maya met his eyes. "No, sir. I revealed that integrity had already been compromised." He scowled. "This isn't about ethics, it's about national security." "National security starts with truth," Maya said quietly. "Without it, you're not protecting a country, you're protecting a lie." Another officer slammed his pen down. "You've cost lives." Maya's eyes flashed. "So did they. The only difference is I stopped pretending that was acceptable." Silence followed. A different kind of silence this time, not denial but reckoning. After a long pause, the senior official spoke. "This committee will deliberate on the consequences of your actions. You're dismissed." Maya stood. "You can deliberate all you want, sir. The truth already left the room." She turned and walked out before anyone could stop her. Outside, the air was cold and raw. Whisper waited by the steps, holding 2 cups of coffee. "How bad?" she asked. Maya took one, blowing on it. Could be worse. How? They could have believed me. Whisper frowned. You think they do? I think they're scared they do. The girl studied her quietly. What will they do to you? Probably nothing, Maya said. Not yet, the world's watching. Whisper tilted her head. And when the world stops watching? Maya looked toward the horizon. Then we find new eyes. That night the city seemed quieter, not peaceful, just paused. The kind of quiet that comes before history decides which way it'll turn. Maya sat by the window, staring at the Capitol lights. She thought about the oath she'd taken at 20 years old. To defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. She smiled faintly. Back then, she never imagined that domestic might mean people wearing the same uniform. Whisper came over, holding her phone. There's something you should see. It was a video, grainy, handheld, filmed outside a military base. A group of young soldiers stood in formation, refusing to board their transport. A reporter off-screen asked, "Why are you disobeying deployment orders?" The lead soldier looked straight into the camera. "Because we read what Sergeant Hale said, and we decided we'd rather face punishment than follow illegal orders." Whisper looked up at Maya. "You changed something." Maya shook her head. "They changed themselves. I just reminded them they could." Whisper smiled. "You sound like a leader." "I'm not a leader," Maya said. "I'm a reminder." The next morning, she received a letter. No insignia, no return address, just one line inside. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. No signature, but she knew the handwriting. Aves. She folded the paper gently, closing her eyes. For the first time in months, she let herself cry quietly, fully, without resistance. Not for loss. For completion. Later that day, as the sun rose over the Capitol, Maya walked to the National Mall. The marble of the war memorials glowed with early light. Visitors stood quietly among the names carved in stone. Whisper walked beside her, hands in her pockets. "You ever think about going back to the Marines?" Maya smiled faintly. "I never left, I just stopped saluting the wrong people." They stopped before a wall etched with names. Maya traced her fingers over the letters. Marcus Porter, the Marine who'd once been branded a traitor, now cleared by truth. Whisper watched her. "He'd be proud of you." Maya's voice trembled. "No, tell me it shouldn't have taken this long." The girl smiled. "Then let's make sure it doesn't again." Maya turned, the wind lifting her hair. "Deal." Somewhere behind them, a group of cadets in uniform passed, whispering her name as they walked by. Not in anger. In respect. Maya didn't turn, she didn't need to. She wasn't looking for applause. She'd already heard it once before, and this time, silence meant something better. It meant the world was finally thinking. And for a soldier who once fought to be seen, that was enough. Because sometimes war isn't fought for land or flags. It's fought for memory. For the truth we owe the dead. And the dignity we owe the living. And as Maya stood there, morning light washing over the memorial, she realized something she'd never said out loud before. "I didn't lose my faith in my country," she whispered. "I just stopped mistaking silence for loyalty." Whisper took her hand, squeezing it tight. And for the first time in her life, Maya Hale felt what victory really was. Not triumph, not glory. Peace. What happens after the war ends, not the one fought with guns, but the one fought with truth. For Sergeant Maya Hale, peace wasn't a parade or a medal. It was silence. Not the empty kind. The kind that finally lets you breathe. It had been 6 months since the hearings. The files were public now, declassified, archived, debated in classrooms and newsrooms around the world. Names once buried in redacted ink were being spoken again. And somewhere in the quiet corners of Arlington, flowers began to appear on graves that had been ignored for over a decade. The truth, it seemed, had roots. It grew slowly, but it grew. Maya lived far from the city now, a small house near the Chesapeake, surrounded by woods and wind. The kind of place where you could hear your own thoughts again. Sometimes that was a blessing, sometimes it was. Whisper stayed with her, not as a witness anymore, but as family. They didn't talk much about the past. The past was still there, in the pauses between conversations, in the scar across Maya's shoulder, in the way Whisper flinched at distant thunder. But they were learning how to live in the after. Maya tended a small garden, Whisper painted. And for the first time in 12 years, there were mornings when Maya didn't wake up reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Sometimes she even smiled before the coffee was ready. That was progress. One afternoon, Whisper came running from the mailbox, waving an envelope. "No return address again," she said. Maya wiped her hands on a towel, her face softening. "Another one." Whisper nodded. "That's 3 this month." Inside were letters, some from soldiers, some from civilians, all unsigned. Most said the same thing: "Thank you." Not the kind of thank you that comes from gratitude. The kind that comes from being seen. One note read, "Because of you, I told the truth about what I saw. They didn't believe me, but I said it anyway." Another said, "My brother died in Silent Harbor. I thought his name would disappear. It didn't. You gave it back." Whisper placed the letters on the kitchen table. "You should frame them." Maya smiled faintly. "No, the wall for the ones who didn't make it." She nodded toward a small corner of the house, a quiet altar of sorts. Ava's dog tags, Marcus Porter's photograph, a folded Marine flag. And one phrase, carved on a strip of wood above them. "Silence is easy, dignity takes work." Whisper read it again, tracing the words with her fingertips. "You really believe that?" "I have to," Maya said. "Otherwise, everything we did means nothing." Later that week, they went into town for supplies. It was strange being recognized again, not by rank but by story. At the small diner near the harbor, an older man stopped her by the door. "Sergeant Hale." She turned cautious. "Yes, sir." He smiled gently. "My son served under Admiral Hallstrom. He lost his leg in Helmand. We always thought it was an accident until you told us the truth." Maya nodded, unsure what to say. The man's voice trembled. "I just wanted to say thank you for giving me a reason to forgive him. He didn't die for nothing anymore." She shook his hand, her throat too tight for words. When he left, Whisper whispered, "Does it ever feel strange? People thanking you for something that broke you?" Maya smiled sadly. "Every day." "Do you ever regret it?" Maya thought for a moment. "Sometimes, but regret, just the shadow of honesty. It means you did something real." That night the power went out, a coastal storm rolling in from the bay. Thunder rumbled, shaking the windows. Maya lit a candle and sat by the window, watching lightning flash across the horizon. Whisper joined her quietly. "You miss it sometimes, don't you? The service, the missions." Maya's eyes stayed on the dark water. "Not the missions, the purpose." "Isn't this purpose?" "It is," Maya said softly. "But purpose in peace feels different, quieter. You start hearing yourself again, and sometimes you don't like what you hear." Whisper rested her head on her shoulder. "That's when you remember you're still human." Maya smiled faintly. "That's the hard part, isn't it? Being human again." The girl nodded. "You're getting better at it." They sat in silence, the candlelight flickering across their faces, soldier and survivor, bound by the same truth that almost destroyed them both. Outside, the storm passed. Inside, the quiet held. Weeks later, Maya received a call she didn't expect. The Department of Defense, official, clipped, formal. They wanted her to speak. Not at a hearing. At a graduation. The same academy where it had all begun. At first she said no. Too many ghosts, too many memories. But Whisper placed a hand on hers. Maybe they need to see who you are now, not who they think you were. Maya thought about it for a long time. Then she said, all right. The day of the ceremony was bright, blue sky, perfect breeze. Almost cruelly beautiful. The same parade ground. The same flags. Different world. Maya stood backstage as the band played the anthem. Her hands trembled slightly. It wasn't fear. It was weight, the kind that comes when you're about to speak for everyone who can't. When they called her name, the crowd rose to its feet. Some applauded. Some hesitated. But all listened. She stepped to the podium, eyes scanning the sea of new cadets, faces filled with pride, anxiety, and the kind of hope that still believes the world is fair. She waited until the applause faded. Then, in that deliberate, calm voice that had once commanded battlefields, she began. I came here once before, years ago, not as a speaker, but as a guest who wasn't welcome. The audience fell silent. I wore a uniform that didn't fit anyone's expectations. I stood where I wasn't supposed to stand, and some people thought that made me less worthy of being here. She paused, the sunlight catching the edge of her medals. They were wrong, not because of me, but because no one who serves truth should ever be unwelcome anywhere. A faint murmur rippled through the cadets. She continued, her tone firm but kind. Some of you will go places the world will never see. You'll make choices no one will ever know about. And when those choices come, when no one is watching, that's when you'll decide what kind of soldier you really are. She looked toward the front row, where Whisper sat, proud, still wearing Maya's dog tags. Courage isn't pulling a trigger, Maya said softly. It's standing alone when silence would be safer. She paused again. I broke rules to tell the truth. I lost people I loved because of it. But I'd do it again because if you serve without conscience, you don't serve anything at all. The crowd was silent now, the kind of silence that listens. She ended simply. Honor isn't something you wear, it's something you live. And if you ever forget what that means, look for the truth, even when it hurts to see it. When she stepped back, the field erupted in applause. Not thunderous, not wild, but real. Earned. In the front row, Whisper stood, her eyes bright. And behind her, among the rows of cadets, 6 men in dress whites rose to their feet saluting. Ethan Ross among them. Older, grayer, still standing. And for one moment, one breath, Maya felt time fold in on itself. The humiliation of that first day. The salute that had silenced the world. And now this. The same ground. The same Marine. The same truth. But a different world watching. Later, when the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, Maya walked alone across the empty field. The air smelled of grass and sea. The same air she'd breathed years ago, but somehow lighter now. Whisper caught up to her, jogging to her side. You did it. Maya smiled. No, we did. Whisper grinned. You know they'll write about this, right? Let them, Maya said. But not as a story about one soldier. Make sure they tell it as a story about all of us, the ones who refuse to stay silent. They reached the steps where it had all started, the same spot where the guards once turned her away. Maya stopped, looking down at the stone beneath her boots. She bent down, brushed her fingers over the ground, and whispered something too soft for anyone else to hear. Whisper tilted her head. What did you say? Maya straightened, smiling. Goodbye. They walked off together, 2 figures fading into the sunlight, the wind carrying the faint echo of a promise kept. Days later, the last scene played out quietly. The world moved on. Headlines changed. But the truth remained. And so did she. Maya tended her garden as dusk fell, the radio playing softly in the background. The news mentioned her name only briefly now, as a footnote in a story that had already reshaped history. That was enough. She didn't want fame. She wanted peace. Whispers' laughter carried from the porch, and for a moment Maya looked up at the sky, a quiet smile on her face. She whispered to the wind, as if speaking to those who couldn't answer. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And then she went back to her garden, to the life she'd fought to deserve. Not a soldier anymore. Not a fugitive. Not a symbol. Just human. And finally, at peace.